This story varies depending on the situation, but usually it involves a lone person wandering down the streets, when they'd suddenly encounter a woman with a surgical mask on her face. In Japan, this is not an unusual sighting as these masks are often worn by people who are sick, as to prevent others from getting ill. Some even wear them for fashion's sake. In any case, the woman would walk by the innocent person and grab them, forcing them to face her. She would look deep into their eyes and ask, "Am I beautiful?" The response from here onward determines the fate of the victim. If she is told that no, the KUCHISAKE-ONNA will then stab her victim with a pair of scissors. After she's stabbed them repeatedly, making sure that the victim is dead, she will simply walk away, disappearing down the street. If they tell the KUCHISAKE-ONNA that she is beautiful, the woman will then remove her mask and reveal her slit-open mouth. She would then ask, "How about now?" What the person says from this point does not matter, as it will end in death either way. If they say no, the victim will be sliced in half. But if the victim continues to call her beautiful, the slit-mouthed woman will then cut a very similar scar on their face, leaving them with a slit mouth. There are many urban legends that have sprouted from the interest in new technology such as computers and cell phones over in Japan. Many of them are, without a doubt, very disturbing. This one has a more eerie tone to it due to the legend being based on reality. As the legend goes, random victims who were using their computers would suddenly receive a pop-up message, which upon clicking takes them through a questionnaire. Once you have finished, the pop-up will then display your name, among a host of different names as well. Some that may even belong to your family members, or perhaps neighbors or classmates. The very next day, you will be found dead in your room, while blood drips from your walls and ceilings. Your entire room is covered in blood smeared from wall to wall, floor to ceiling. Within the room, a message will be displayed either on the walls written in your blood, or in front of the computer screen. "You have committed suicide" is what it would say. The most chilling part of this tale, as stated before, is that this legend has claimed the light once before, though not in the way the tale was told. No, this incident involves an infamous murder known as the Sasebo slashing. The Red Room curse became popular in the dark corners of the internet after a 12-year-old girl in Sasebo, Nagasaki was murdered by her classmate. The murderer, who has remained unnamed due to being 11 years old at the time, was found to have a link to a Red Room bookmarked on her computer. This story involves a taxi driver who was driving on the road one lonesome night. They would drive around the block, looking for any fares, when someone from the darkness would seemingly materialize and hail the taxi. When the strange figure enters, they would ask the driver to take them to a town the driver would never have heard of before. If the driver mentions this, the figure will reassure them that it wouldn't be too far, and that they'd guide them to the right direction. Whilst driving, the figure will make odd demands, making the driver turn left and right through all sorts of unfamiliar alleys and streets. There are some instances where the figure would guide them through a city, when suddenly the car would find itself in the middle of the countryside out of nowhere. After hours of driving, the cabbie would then begin to panic. The figure doesn't seem to be clear where they're heading to, which irritates the person driving. Once they get restless enough, the driver looks back to demand where the customer would be taking them, only to find nothing but air. When the driver turns his gaze back on the road, they'd see the edge of a cliff. The driver would slam his foot on the brakes, but to no avail. The cab would fly off into the air, and the last thing the driver would see are jagged rocks coming towards his windshield. Elder sister vomits blood, younger sister is breathing fire while sweet little Tomino spits up the jewels. This gruesome poem called Tomino's Hell will bring death to anyone who reads it aloud. Written by Saijo Yasu as part of a poetry collection in 1919, the poem is about a young boy named Tomino who descends into the 8 levels of hell. Some interpret the poem to be about Tomino losing his soul from having killed one of his parents, as there is a special place in Buddhist hell for people who commit this sin. Others see it as a metaphor for Tomino going to war and dying in agony never to see his family again. In 1974, Director Terama Shuji released a movie based on Tomino's Hell, Den en Nishizu, Pastoral, to die in the country. He died prematurely at 50 years old due to liver disease, which sparked already forming rumors that reading this poem out loud causes suffering and death. Apparently reading the poem in your mind is okay. We hope you didn't read those first lines out loud, whoops. See the full poem translated into English translation here. Back in 1918, a 17-year-old boy in Hokkaido bought a doll at the market for his 2-year-old sister, Kakou. The doll looked similar to her as they both had an okappa haircut, a bowl cut with straight hair down to the chin. She loved the doll so much that she took it everywhere with her, even to sleep. When Kakou died months later, the family named the doll after her and prayed to it at their household shrine. It wasn't long after they noticed something strange happening. The doll's hair was gradually growing longer. Even after cutting it, the hair kept growing back. It was at that moment the family knew they messed up. Kakou's father gave the doll to Mananji Temple in Iwamizawa City, Hokkaido, where it can be visited to this day, no photos allowed. Scientists have analyzed the hair of the doll and concluded that it is real human hair, from a child. Freaky. The remoteness of the temple makes it extremely hard to access without a car, and even then it can be dangerous when there's heavy snowfall. Some ghost tours do take visitors here, but they are typically only in Japanese. In case you were thinking about trying to see this demonic doll for yourself,